All right, welcome, folks. This is take two. Tried this about a half hour ago. Had a lot of trouble with the audio. Had a trouble with everything. But all right, let's get back to it. Those New York Mets, the New York stinky Mets, folks. The team is an embarrassment. The team stinks. They suck. Horrible. I mean, folks, we are looking at, in my opinion, one of, what am I saying? One of the biggest collapses and embarrassments in New York Mets history. Move over '07. Move over 2023, 2008, whatever year you could think of. 2025 is an unmitigated disaster. A disaster, folks. I mean, the Phillies, this just sealed the deal. Sealed the freaking deal. We are 5-10 in our last 15 against teams that, all right, we thought we were going to beat. We thought we were going to propel us into the playoffs. These New York Mets, they were under the impression that they could turn it on whenever they wanted. Yeah, the Reds are coming into town. We could turn it on. Phillies, we got 4 games left with the Phillies. No, this team is playing like a joke, like a complete joke right now. And, Carlos Mendoza is the leader. And I continue to blame the leaders. David Stearns, hey, you know what? It's coming for David Stearns because David Stearns ultimately is the guy. He's the puppet master. He's pulling all the strings. He is the architect. But right now on the field, it is a mess. You got McNeil today not looking like he could play center field. I mean, other day, you got guys, Juan Soto's up, your best hitter. You know what? Let's get picked off. Hey, Brett Beatty, I'm looking at you. Francisco Lindor doing it multiple times, multiple games before that. This team does not look like they give a damn. I got on the Phillies a couple of days ago because, they were upset when they lost to the New York Mets. And rightfully so. You have Luzardo getting mad, Christopher Sanchez attacking things, everybody getting mad, getting upset, showing emotion, hating to lose. The New York Mets, what is something that they do not look like? Do they hate to lose? Do the New York Mets hate to lose? Absolutely not. They have no problem with losing. The latest debacle today, I mean, you're up 4 runs. You were up 4 runs to the Phillies, and you end up getting humiliated. I mean, the Mets weren't just swept. Completely embarrassed, humiliated, outscored, flat out quit on the field. I mean, tonight's loss specifically, sloppy defense, lack of urgency, zero fight. Paint the Phillies as the bullies in the schoolyard and the Mets as the kid who dropped their lunch tray and just walks away. I mean, basically, whatever, take it. And it's same thing in the wild card race. You got a bunch of teams who are inferior to the Mets, who have less talent than the Mets, but they are chasing the Mets down. You got San Francisco Giants, and they literally embarrassed the Mets with Tyler Rogers and getting Drew Gilbert. And that's another story. New York Mets needed a center fielder. They didn't even try. To get Drew Gilbert. They didn't even try to say, hey, let's look at this kid. Let's package him along with a couple other chips, and let's get a guy, Tyler Rogers, a submariner who is a free agent, is 34 years old, and who has little value. And let's pair him with Ryan Helsley. Hell's Bells, Hell's Joke. Let's freaking pair him with Hell's Joke, and let's see. We'll make this bullpen into the best bullpen in baseball. Again, that was a joke. And then you compare the Mullins acquisition and the Ryan Helsley acquisition with Harrison Bader and Duran in the bullpen for the Phillies. And again, it shows you the incompetence of David Stearns. How much incompetence could you have in 1 year? When 2024 came around, that was supposed to be, all right, let's turn the page. Now we got a president in here that knows baseball, that knows how to build a team, right? We're all happy. 2024 was good. 2 games shy of the World Series. We're going to keep getting better and better and better. Well, it doesn't help when you don't have any rotation. You signed Shomania, who only had 3 good months in his entire career. Let's give him $75 million. All right, that makes sense. Frankie Montas, oh, he's another pet project for David Stearns. $34 million for you. I mean, those two contracts, again, were they smart contracts? No, they were dumb. They were dumb contracts. And then you couple that with Kodai Senga, who pitched 5 innings last year, right? So it's not like, okay, we're going to get an older pitcher. We're going to get a crappy pitcher. And our ace only pitched 5 innings last year, and he's injury prone. Is there any surprise that he's got injured this year and that he's struggling because he's pitched a decent amount of innings, way more than 5? Clay Holmes, is it a surprise that he's struggling? David Peterson, and I know a lot of people like David Peterson. I love David Peterson, but the fact of the matter is David Peterson never threw over 121 innings. So he is well above that, right? So now the genius plan is you're relying on a bunch of rookies. And Noah McClain, he deserves to be here no matter what. He's good. He's got the goods. I'm happy about him. But you know what? This rotation was set to fail, and everybody could see it from a mile away, right? So now you're at the point where you have to fight. You have to claw for that playoff spot, and you don't have the team to do it. You don't have the leaders. Francisco Lindor, I'm looking at you. Play solid defense, play fundamental defense. And in the last 6 weeks, Francisco Lindor has not done that. And you know what? Again, other leaders on the team looking for them to step up, nobody's stepping up. But then when I look above that and I look at Carlos Mendoza and I look at this team, Stearns and all, I question everything they've done. From letting injured guys play on the field. I mean, you got Francisco Alvarez coming back a couple of days ago. Folks, Francisco Alvarez shouldn't be playing baseball. He's got multiple injuries in his hand. Why the hell is he playing? The other day, you got the bat in his hand. He could win the ball game. You got the bat in his hand. He shouldn't have been in that ball game. I don't care. Anybody would have been better. Anybody who doesn't have 2 injuries in their damn hand would have been better in the 9th inning. So, I mean, again, whose decision is it to let a guy with multiple injuries play in a postseason stretch run? Again, I got to look at management, and I got to question, what the hell are you doing? What is Stearns doing? Mendoza, again, a dead man walking. What do you do? Repeat the same thing. We got great talent. We're going to win. Don't worry about it. The guy looks like he's going to cry in almost the press conferences, and I don't blame him. He's got no answers. He's got no solutions. He's got a bunch of players behind him who are making way more money than him, who have more pull and more power than him, probably going to Steve Cohen's back, saying this guy, not a good manager. I mean, we had Buck here a couple years ago, and, Stearns' first decision was to, hey, Buck, hit the road. Let's get this guy, Carlos Mendoza, in here. And again, that decision is coming back to bite Stearns in such a big way. Because again, you're not going to tell me that the teams behind the Mets have more talent. And I mean the Reds, I mean the Giants, I mean every single team. You got about 4 or 5 teams crawling up the behinds of the New York Mets, because the New York Mets have essentially opened the door, wide open the door and say, hey, anybody who wants this 3rd wild card spot, you can have it, because we don't want it. We have no passion. We have no fight, and we will make every single misplay possible. It's just very upsetting, because this was the year that the New York Mets fans were duped again. $350 million, $800 million to Juan Soto, World Series supposedly this year, right? Does it look like that? No. The New York Mets taking your money, my time, your time, and they're going to continue to say, come out to the ballpark, support this crappy product, right? And I'm just sick of it. I can't watch the games anymore. I got to watch the highlights, because I see, like, I haven't played in professional level, but you can see when a team has just virtually thrown up the white towel. They're waiting out the season. And then today, hold on, folks. And I apologize, whoever was here earlier, for the microphone problems. I had to change all different. I was using a different service. Having trouble with that. So if you could start liking the video, let's start that. A new thing called hyping the video that helps out our videos. Again, I got to fix this live stream thing, having connection issues, everything. And I don't know. I think I got a dead spot next to my house, but all right, whatever. That's besides the point. New York Mets right now, great debacle. I heard on WFAN today, saw a small clip, and they were essentially blaming Juan Soto for being selfish, right? Selfish guy, right? He's got the highest OBP every single year on base, most walks. Guy takes a lot of pitches that I wish he would swing at. All right, I wish he would be more selfish. He's got 40 home runs, coming up on 35 stolen bases, 110 plus runs scored, 100 plus RBIs, leading the league in a couple big categories. I wish I had more selfish players like Juan Soto, but apparently he's padding his stats, right? It's not like he's a good player going along with the season, just, obviously doing the best he can. No, he's only got a home run here and there, stolen base here and there because he's going to pad his stat. Well, you know what? He cares about his performance, right? Again, I wish more guys up and down that lineup would pad their stats. Hey, Pete Alonso, get on base so you can pad your stats. Everybody, Mark Vientos, be a lot more consistent. Up and down that lineup has just failed when we needed them to come up clutch. Phillies series, I mean, this was a complete joke. Phillies last 2 weeks, they cared when they lost. They felt that loss. The Mets right now have been swept by a team that has they've gone 11 games in front of them. So that division, again, the division has been gone in the last week, right? There's no more fight for that. I mean, we can't. The exclamation point has really been put on by the Phillies. They didn't just beat the Mets. They mocked them. They pummeled them. They made a statement against the Mets. And the New York Mets literally just laid down. Again, I say the analogy. They gave them their lunch money and said, yeah, fine, don't hurt me. You could just take the wins. It's just abysmal. I mean, in the last 15 games, you have the Mets at 5-10, a terrible skid. We've gone from a solid playoff team, a solid to good playoff team, and now we are barely clinging for life. Again, and I know people saying this is normal with the season, ups and downs, but this isn't a slump. This is a free fall. This is just something that the New York Mets have, really showed the world who they are, really. And I called Carlos Mendoza Mr. Rogers. I called him Mr. Nice Guy in the past. I mean, again, Carlos Mendoza is getting walked on. He's getting run over right now. And, you see Sean Manaea. Sean Manaea, I know there's extenuating circumstances, but you got Kodai Senga going down. Sean Manaea should have been, holding Kodai Senga's bags, making that trip with him. I mean, and you see Sean Manaea in the post-game press conferences, and the guy can't stop smiling. He can't stop laughing. And then Keith Hernandez goes, well, Sean Manaea, he's a guy. You got to motivate him. Some guys you manage differently. Some guys, you give confidence to. Some guys you got to push. And it appears like Sean Manaea is a guy you have to push. You just gave him $75 million, and you got to push him to play productively. I mean, first of all, that is a very bad job by David Stearns, because if you know, and you had him last year, and that's his mentality, why would you sign him at 33 years old to a 3-year, $75 million contract? So again, that's on David Stearns right there. Because again, you got to do your background. You got to know what type of mentality this guy is, and apparently he's not the guy for New York under the lights for these playoff runs. He doesn't have it. Does not have it. And, every single trade right now is a backfire. Every single trade, all those chips, we're going to see how bad these trades were. We're going to see. But if you look at the opportunity cost, what we could have had, I mean, even looking at, we could have had a Drew Gilbert, he's being productive. We could have had a Harrison Bader. We could have made trades for other players. The players that we brought in here have been beyond garbage. And again, Stearns came in here as the savior. But right now, he looks like he's burning. He literally looks like he's burning this team to the ground. I mean, the Mets front office promised us October baseball. Instead, I mean, everybody are going to be planning vacations because honestly, October baseball doesn't look like it's going to come. So, folks, I apologize. Us Mets fans, it just feels like, again, we deserve way more. What's up, Richie? I see you there. You're done criticizing, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is what I think about all day long, right? And this, I'm at work. I gotta do things that are productive. But I'm thinking about how could David Stearns go into the 2025 season, right? With the expectations being World Series, right? How could we go into that season spending 800 million on Juan Soto with a rotation with all of those flaws, right? Was there, a thought process like we're going to pick up an ace or a couple of pitchers before the trade deadline and that didn't work out? Were we was supposed to bring up a Nolan McLean months ago or Sprout months ago? I mean, that was just such a disaster from the start because we knew, again, I've said this over and over. Holmes, a converted bullpen guy, he wasn't going to be able to pitch close to 200 innings. Frankie Montas, again, garbage. Senga pitched 5 innings. So it looked like this whole rotation, again, was doomed from the start. Doomed from the start. So again, I was kind of thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, maybe this wasn't the year. Maybe Stearns in the back of his head, all right, you know what? We're gonna sign a bunch of guys. Show Manaya, okay, that'll be our best signing. Then we'll get a guy like Frankie Montes to fill out the rotation. We'll say this is the year. We got Juan Soto, but how the hell could this have been the year when we assembled a crap pitching staff? I mean, David Stearns is a guy that we look to as being a baseball savant, a baseball genius. Unless he had so much damn bravado, ego that he felt that these guys through the pitching lab, he could have turned them into, the next coming of an all-star. It's just really hard to fathom that he had enough comp to a World Series rotation. This team has too many injuries. I mean, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, we had nobody injured. Alvarez was out there. The Mets have done way too much losing since mid-June. Since mid-June, with 15 games under 500. I mean, this is not a small stretch. And other teams have injuries. Other teams have injuries. Like Senga's not, he's been out there, pitching like crap. Manaya, he's been out there pitching like crap. Those are your two big guys. Those are your two big guys in the rotation, right? So those guys are there. Your big guns behind, on the offense, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, they've been there the whole year. Mark Vientos is there. Everybody's here. I mean, if it was a brave situation, maybe, but the New York Mets have enough talent to play. Really, they're not playing. How many errors have we seen? We had 15 errors in August. I didn't count how many errors we had in the last week and a half. But not only that, besides the errors, the misplays. I mean, Brandon Nimmo in left field. I mean, honestly, it looked like the guy has regressed so much in left field. And then you got Mullins in center field. Again, that's a bad move. That's a bad trade. Tyrone Taylor, the injury, that hurt. There's just way, way too many things. And, I'm not giving them excuses. They're not, the teams behind us have just as many excuses. The Reds have just as many excuses. The Giants freaking gave up on the season and they're in it. The Cardinals gave up on the season. So, I mean, there's other teams and they have just as many excuses, except they don't have the tools. They don't have the resources. They don't have the $350 million payroll. And they don't have, the amount of talent that we still currently have on the team. Okay, so you got the 4 teams chasing down the Mets. The Reds, they're 1.5 games behind the Mets, and they're coming quickly. We're on a 6-game losing streak. Pathetic. And again, losing 5 out of our last 15 games. This is how we fight. This is how we fight down the stretch. The San Francisco Giants, who literally gave up pieces at the deadline. They're 74-72. They're a game and a half behind the excuse-laden Mets. The Arizona D-backs, another team who made trades who unloaded talent. They are 3 games behind the Mets. And the St. Louis Cardinals, honestly, who literally got prospects for Ryan Helsley. Again, Hell's joke. They are 4 games back. Watch all of these teams by the end of the season pass the New York Mets. And all those teams have excuses. All those teams could have gave up. All those teams had the excuse to stop fighting. All those teams, every single one of them that gave up, but they didn't. They continue to play better and better. And as the team goes on, and we saw it last year, and this is why I had confidence this year, the team got better as the season progressed. This year, it's an inverse. As the season progressed, the team got worse and worse and worse. So, I mean, again, the pitching, I hope the pitching would get better. I hope Manaea would eventually fixed his problems. And again, I know people say he's got issues with his elbow. Then fine, the Mets shouldn't have him out there. I don't want to hear an excuse. I don't want to hear Senga. Yeah, he's saying he's not perfect. I don't want to hear. Every other pitching staff has their own issues. Everyone. The Reds have issues. The Giants have issues. The Cardinals have issues. But they find ways to win. There's no excuse. Again, and I'm not blaming one particular person. There's enough blame. I'm going to say this. Enough blame to go around. Carlos Mendoza, David Stearns, players up and down the lineup. Everybody deserves blame. Steve Cohen, every single person deserves blame for this joke. This joke of a season, an embarrassment of the season. And again, I know there's going to be a bunch of excuses made. All right, we're Mets fans. We're used to losing, right? But it's not acceptable. It is not acceptable. And Steve Cohen came in here as a winner, as a guy who's going to invest in this team, in the minor leagues, in the resources and everything. You know how much money Steve Cohen has invested? My fear is, and I like that he's invested, but how long is this going to last? I know he's got $20 billion, but you cannot continue to lose hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on this mess and have nothing to show for it other than embarrassment and humiliation. So, I mean, how long do we expect Steve Cohen to actually own this team? Yeah, Rich, I see what you're saying. I agree. Everyone deserves to be held accountable. But I'm not saying you. I'm just saying there are a lot of people out there who literally, I bleed orange and blue, right? I've been a fan since I was 4 or 5 years old, Mets fans, and I've been a diehard Mets fan. Watched ridiculous hours, spent 18, 20 hours of my day invested in the New York Mets since I was a little kid, right? So I'm not just a guy the last 2-3 years who just started covering the Mets. I'm a Met fan, right? I'm not, I'm not a broadcaster. I'm a Met fan who reacts to Mets, what the Mets are. So again, is it going to be reactionary? Is everything going to be, 100% sane all of the time? Probably not. But you know what? I just think at this point right now, it is just, abysmally unacceptable. And, it seems like heads have to roll. Like, how can a guy in Steve Cohen find this acceptable? Like, what is going on behind closed doors? I remember years ago, there would be leaks and, Will Pond said this to that. And, there would be a bunch of leaks. So I give the Mets credit for that the leaks aren't there. You don't hear a lot of the behind the scenes. You don't hear like this player said this or this player said that. I think the last time you heard was in 2023, the last big thing where the clubhouse, was apparently there was a lot of stuff when Verlander was on the team, when there was a lot of tension. But I haven't heard that in a while. I know you had Lindor, you had McNeil years ago, but at the end of the day, is Cohen was if I'm Cohen, like, am I even behind Mendoza? Like, I know he gave the vote of confidence around the deadline, but I think it was like, hey, David, this is your team right now. Whatever happens, you want to believe in Carlos Mendoza. You want to not fire him. I think one of the biggest mistakes was not firing Carlos Mendoza right after the trade deadline. Because right then and there, you saw the New York Mets begin to free fall. In fact, they had signs before that, but the Mets didn't respond to the trade deadline. I remember David Wright, he went on a podcast and he said that the trade deadline was always a way to inspire the team. Always a way. If the New York Mets decided to invest in this team, which they did, they gave up a lot of prospects. That should have in itself inspired the Lindors. It should have inspired this team up and down. Now, I know Lindor eventually got it going, but the team was not inspired. We went 11-17 in August, and we continued to fall further and further back. And, again, I think that was a blatant mistake. I think not firing Mendoza after the trade deadline when the Mets continued to lose, that was the point. And then instead of firing Mendoza, Steve Cohen came out and gave a vote of confidence. The players got comfortable. They knew nobody was going anywhere. And that was that. And the season was done right there. Again, the season's not over, but it's literally like a slow motion car wreck right now. We can all hope for the best, but would we be surprised if the Mets missed the wild card by 3 or 4 games? I mean, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. Richard, I'm reading every single thing you write. So the last thing you wrote is a lot of people want this team to fail. They need to be humbled. I mean, a lot of people, yeah, again, a lot of people I know I realize we're against the New York Mets, right? But I don't think the team needs to be humbled. I mean, they seem like a team that's really, like I said, expecting to lose right now. That's why I like when the Mets beat the Phillies a couple weeks ago, because I felt they were a team that needed to be humbled. But the Phillies showed a couple weeks ago, guy kicking a garbage can, them going nuts when they got swept. They hate to lose. I want a team that hates to lose, right? I want a team that hates to lose. And this team right now is not showing the passion. They're not showing the fight. They're not playing fundamental ball. That's bottom line. They are professional athletes, not playing fundamental ball. I mean, just, Pete Alonso has had throwing issues hitting the pitcher all year. Francisco Lindor has had trouble picking the ball from the catcher on throwdowns to second base for the last 2 months. And Francisco Lindor has played his worst defensive baseball in the last month and a half down the stretch when we need to. Brandon Nimmo looks like left field is beginning to become a very big challenge to him. Mark Vientos, we know he's had his issues. Mullins doesn't look like a defensive stud out there. I mean, defensively, and I haven't even mentioned Juan Soto. I mean, you cannot win if the team is not defensively sound. It's not defensively sound. The best defensive player on the team is the freaking catcher, Luis Torrens. That's the best defensive guy on the team. And you can't win like that. You cannot win like that. Yeah, Richard, you're the only one posting. I'm in a room that I'm not normally in. The other one that I was in, I was using a different service. It seemed like it was going haywire. But yeah, Richard, thank you for keeping the comments alive. I appreciate that. Um, Jason, oh yeah, there we go. We got a straggler. Hey, Jason, what's up? And you're right. What's up, my man? I don't know what happened to this team, but they look lifeless right now. What is going on? Well, frankly, Jason, we are in the midst of a free fall. Unfortunately, we're all Mets fans here. We're in the midst of a free fall, and right now, usually, you rely on a leader, right? I mean, I think there lack of leadership in that clubhouse is a big concern, right? Nobody's turning the page. Nobody's saying, hey, get on my back. I mean, the only guy that I have confidence right now is Nolan McLean. and Juan Soto. But apparently Juan Soto right now, the new narrative is the guy's padding his stat. He's selfish. He only cares about, his number. But yeah, in my opinion, the guy, I wanted to be more selfish. I wanted to be more aggressive. You're talking about the guy who's the most patient hitter in all of Major League Baseball, who never swings the bat, who looks to walk all the time, looks to get on base and pass the baton. When I played baseball, that was considered one of the most selfless players, the guys who walked, the guys who wanted to keep the line moving. But, apparently, people are looking to knock people down when they're on a pedestal. Juan Soto's having a great year. Started off a little rough, but Juan Soto, one of the few guys that have confidence on offense, although he didn't come through in this series, especially the last couple of games. But, the guy's human. Pete Alonso, your big players right now are going into slumps. You got no leaders. Your big players are going into slumps, and your starting pitchers suck. Your bullpen is tired, and, besides Diaz, there's really not much talent there. So, I mean, there are a lot of reasons. You're not playing defensively sound baseball. You're not playing fundamental baseball. So, I mean, the list is so damn long for why this team is continuing to crap the bed. And when they lose, it looks like, all right, yeah, let's shrug our shoulders. Our paychecks are going to be here on Friday. And all right, we got a series with the Texas Rangers, and, maybe we'll win a game. I mean, it seems like such a nonchalant attitude. And the thing that I hate, and Richard, I don't know if you hate this. Hey, what's up, Explosive? This is what I hate. I hate the fraternizing, the friendship with the other team. Killed me 3 months ago when we were playing the Padres and we got freaking swept by the Padres. They beat us, and now is a time where we were actually winning games, winning series. And then you see Lindor and every single teammate going up to Iglesias like they're at a party. What the hell is that all about? I hate that. I can't stand that. I can't stand that. And then on the broadcast, I got to hear a little of the broadcast the other day, and I hear the most insane thing that I've heard probably in the last couple of weeks. And it's Keith Hernandez talking about Pete Alonso at first base, and Bryce Harper in game one of this series wasn't talking to Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso was smiling, talking, and Bryce Harper was stone-faced. And Keith Hernandez couldn't figure out why he wasn't talking. In game two, after the Phillies won, Bryce Harper was talking. But I thought that was ridiculous. Of course, he's got his game face on Bryce Harper. He doesn't give a damn about talking to Pete Alonso. I want that killer instinct. I want that, I don't care who the hell you are. My focus is the game. My focus is beating the crap out of you, not being your friend. And, that being your friend mentality, that usually is a reflection of leadership. And that's why Carlos Mendoza, who doesn't have the killer instinct, to me, in New York City, where you need to have the killer instinct. You're not going to be a World Series team if you're not going to be able to make the tough decisions. The veterans run the clubhouse. They run the roost over here. And, again, I think the vote of confidence around the trade deadline was supposed to help Mendoza. Steve Cohen gave that vote of confidence, but in my opinion, it made Mendoza much, much weaker because everybody knew that nothing was going to change. Nothing was going to change no matter what. And after the trade deadline, you saw the true colors of this team. Everybody knew, hey, we can't get traded. And the team just suffered, played worse and worse after the trade deadline. And I'm going to continue to say this. There's no excuse for a team that has the resources of the Mets, that has a payroll of $350 million, that have supposedly the boy genius, David Stearns. And I'm telling David Stearns, here's the thing. David Stearns isn't going to lose his job. He's not going to lose his job. He's not. There's people who want him to lose his job. He's not. Because part of being a good president, a good general manager, is the long-term outlook, right? It's building the pitching prospects, and the Mets they have a slew of pitching prospects, right? And the New York Mets prospects, according to ESPN, are ranked one. They have the number one farm system according to ESPN.com. A lot of people, they may not value ESPN.com as opposed to MLB.com or Baseball America, but nonetheless, the long-term outlook is a bit better when it comes to pitching. We haven't produced any pitchers since, I would say, David Peterson. When was the last productive pitcher that you could say, okay, he could be a top three? There has been no pitchers productive. So Stearns is going to be here. Although, again, he has made some of the worst decisions. And honestly, in my eyes, he has lost a lot of credibility. He has lost a lot of stock. I don't have confidence in any of his trades. He showed desperation at the trade deadline. He didn't thread the needle at all. I said the Mets need to thread the needle, get the perfect pieces in here. Again, I'm going to say this. The Mets got Cedric Mullins, and they got Ryan Helsley, and the Phillies got Harrison Bader, and they got Duran as their closer. The reliever and a center fielder, And about that time, the Phillies and the Mets were pretty close, right? But the Phillies got one heck of a player. Was I rooting for? I was on the fence with Bader at the time. I'll say that. I was wrong. But you know what? It's David Stearns' job to get the best option. And every single option that we got was, I would say, a big time fail at this point. Dan, would I've traded McLean for Bader? No. Come on, Dan. Come on. What did the Phillies trade for Bader? What was that's what I would look. I would look at that level of prospect and compare like that. You're not going to give up one of the best prospects in all of baseball. Yeah, Rich, I see that. You like Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not a big political guy, but I seen a couple clips of him. I thought he was a great guy as well. I mean, honestly, this to me, I don't care if you like somebody, not like somebody. That is nuts. That is insane, insane. Um, my wife was actually crying yesterday. My mother was crying. I'm pretty sure a lot of people were upset. Exactly. Rest in peace. See, that's something I'll never get. I mean, like obviously violence, I'll never be for that. But like shooting somebody you don't like, executing somebody you don't like, I mean, that is just completely insane. It just kind of shows this world. Oh my God. It's like sometimes I gotta watch what I say. I'm like, like I've actually honestly I got a little YouTube channel and I've got like some really ridiculous messages. What's up, Tim? Yeah, Dan. This is getting pretty rough. Uh, I mean, you just want to see something. I mean, like you score 4 runs in the first inning today, and then like you let the pitcher kind of off the hook. He settles into being like Hall of Fame caliber. What really kills me is we made every single Phillies pitcher from Aaron Nola, and we usually take care of business against Aaron Nola. Christopher Sanchez, Literally, we did well against him last time. You make every single one of the Phillies pitchers look, insanely better than what they are. And it's how do you really explain it? How do you really explain it? And that's why I kind of think this team right now, like, in the dugout, they're just expecting to lose. They're playing out the string, and and it's not like this is a season that's over. I mean, like, literally, we had a 4-game lead. A couple of days ago, a 6-game lead, a 5-game lead in the wild card. Literally, 4 or 5 days ago, we were in perfect position. I mean, Vegas had it. Vegas had us at almost an 85% chance of winning the spot, the number 6 wild card spot. And the New York Mets just continue to play like they're 120 games back. And I guess, you know what? With the Mets, they're 15 games back since the middle of June. They're playing like it. They are playing completely horrible. I think the fact of the matter is we look at them as a much better team than what they are. That's why, like I said, I would have fired Mendoza around or a little after the trade deadline, because the Mets kind of started to show that, they need to be kind of put back in line. Like, their mentality after the trade deadline wasn't of a team that was ready for a run. And I think they always had it in the back of their mind, like, all right, late August comes, early September comes, we're going to be able to turn it on, right? Like they were the Yankees of like old. But I said before that even happened, the New York Mets aren't good enough to flip a switch. They're not. They need to play hard every game. They need to play fundamental baseball every single game. And that's what's really kind of lost them, not playing fundamental baseball. And obviously the starting pitchers have just completely sucked. It's just, that's really the bottom line. Early on, what was our key formula? Key formula is we had great starting pitching. We didn't score that many runs early in the season, but we had great starting pitching, and that put us in good positions to win games. And now we have just the opposite. We have horrendous starting pitching besides Nolan McLean. Somebody asked a good question. Okay, explosive. So you ask a very good question. You go, Dom, if you were Mets manager, how would you fix this? Can we fix this? Now we got to face the ground. Okay, now that's a good question. Can we fix this? Now, here's the thing. Timing is getting late, right? A lot of drastic things really should have happened. Now, I'm going to tell you what I would have done weeks ago. Weeks ago, you got to hold people accountable. You got to hold people accountable, not just the crappy players, not just the guys that, could barely make the team. I'm talking about Lindor. Lindor makes multiple errors, can't catch a ball down to second base. He's making errors. You bench him the next game. The ridiculous thing where Lindor has to play every game, and he's played better as of late, but during that 2-month slump, you had a guy who hit 150 for 2 straight months, and he plays every game. Right? So again, holding guys accountable. That's number one you got to start doing. I don't care what the time is. Everybody knows from Lindor, Soto to Alonso, they can fail over and over and over and over and over, and they'll see their name in the lineup next day. Now, the other players in the team see that Lindor is not being held accountable, Soto's not being held accountable, Alonso's not being held accountable. Why should they be held accountable? Or why should they put in the effort? Why should they put it in the effort? You got to start like that. You got to start like that. And then, we need better leadership on this team. It's kind of hard to snap your fingers and have somebody step up and be a leader. But again, you try to give people opportunities, and it's just late. That's the problem. It's late right now. Like, it's not like you can go to Jet Williams. It's not like he can inject energy into the lineup. It would be tough, but I would say the number one thing is you got to hold players accountable. I would have sent Mania and Senga down 6 weeks ago. It would have gave you a little more options. Maybe they would have been back by now, ready. They would have been more focused. They would have been, hey, you know what? Hey, now it's time to put things in gear. We were sent down to the minor. Now we're ready for the playoffs. The timing is just so wrong. The Mets should have done things so much longer ago. It just felt like they thought things were going to click, or they thought things were going to get better. They just mismanaged this entire season. It seems like there's going to be a case study on this season. Every single thing the Mets should have done, every single thing the Mets did wrong, what the other teams behind the Mets did right. I mean, it's embarrassing, frankly, that the New York Mets made a trade with the Giants, who traded away Tyler Rogers, a guy who's going to be a free agent. So Tyler Rogers could essentially, and this is going to be the cake, Tyler Rogers could essentially sign with the Giants, and the Giants got 3 or 4 prospects for Tyler Rogers, right? So that's a joke. Then you got the Giants. Not only can they do that, but they can pass you in the standings, right? So that's a joke right there. And, same thing with the Cardinals. They're only, 4 games back. And they gypped us off with the Helsley trade. I mean, I don't know the prospects. However they do, they can't be worse than a guy who's got a 13 ERA. DeGrom pitching a perfect game tomorrow would definitely not surprise me. I mean, again, if you look at the pitchers this week that the Mets went up against, they weren't anywhere in DeGrom's league, So if the Mets, literally can't hit them, like, what do we expect them to do against DeGrom? The only thing is DeGrom's 37. Maybe he gets a little tired. But again, I mean, it's just, again, we're in just such a horrible situation. It seems like all the things the Mets should have done, moves should have been made so much earlier. There's a stench on this team. The culture, the clubhouse right now, in my opinion, is not a winning clubhouse. It's not a winning clubhouse. Yeah, I would honestly, that's a good point, Richard. Absolutely. Mets fans, you see what you're missing. This, if anything, if anybody was questioning if they should give Jacob deGrom an ovation, right? If anybody was questioning, all they got to do is look at the pitching crap that we've had over the last couple weeks, months, and then you can appreciate how Jacob deGrom, how good he was, and the thing is, I know he made a decision to leave, go to Texas. All right, that's fine. Guy wanted some more money. The Mets weren't offering him that contract. But when Jacob deGrom was here, he pitched his heart out. So I mean, that I 100% expect the New York Mets fans to definitely give him a standing O. Hey, Tim, I gotta say, and you know what? The sentiment that you're expressing is pretty popular. I've seen it all day today. You're saying Juan Soto messed the vibes up. He is a selfish player. And I gotta say this, right? Respectfully, Tim, I disagree. For people who heard earlier in the video, in the stream, I disagree for several reasons. I mean, you could say selfish for reasons that I'm not looking at, but you know what? I look at the baseball aspect of it. The guy is traditionally one of the highest on base guys in all of baseball, traditionally one of the guy who walks the most in all of baseball. Those guys who pass the baton on traditionally aren't selfish, right? Traditionally aren't selfish. And I screamed a lot at the television for this guy to swing the bat more, pad your stats more, swing the bat more. But again, the whole year he tried to pass the baton. Is he a rah-rah guy? Is he a leader like that? No, he's not. Does he care about his performance? Hell yeah. I mean, all the great players do. You think Ohtani last year, I mean, when he was going 50-50, when you have a chance to have a magical year, why not? Why not? There are only 6 players in Major League Baseball history got to 40-40. Only 6. So if that's in your grasp, I think 90% of MLB players would be doing that. And again, he's being productive. I want all the other Mets players to be selfish like Soto. If they were selfish like Soto, I think that the New York Mets would be in a whole different situation. But again, I can see how some people are saying that. I just think there's so many more issues, pressing issues, than saying Juan Soto being selfish is the problem. He's one of only two players in the last couple of weeks that have been productive. Him and Nolan McLean, only two guys that have been productive. And one of those guys, we're gonna say he's the problem. He's selfish. He's padding stats. Who the hell cares? Who the hell cares? I mean, yeah, Tim, I see. The reason I say that is he stole third base with team down. Calling a guy a selfish player means that's what he does every day, all day. Just thinks about him. If he makes one silly or stupid play, like I think it's a silly, stupid play. I wouldn't say he's a selfish player, and that's the reason why the Mets are doomed or losing. It's just one bad play, or maybe just one selfish play doesn't make the guy a selfish player because it's one bad play and one bad scenario. I mean, this is, but it's kind of funny. I mean, like we guys, we got nothing. We got nothing. The debate, and I know the debate, like this was on WFAN. Somebody sent me the link. The debate was if Juan Soto was a selfish player, but I mean, we should really be focusing on the playoffs, fighting for our lives. But the Mets have been so bad that this is where the conversation has shifted to. If our best player is selfish, and if that's the reason why we're losing, I mean, but we're losing because of many reasons. Starting pitching being one of them. Last couple of days, lack of offense, another. Lack of fundamentals, defense, lack of fire, lack no killer instinct. I mean, not even talking about killer instinct because a lot of these games, the Mets weren't even in a position to win. And I mean, it's so sad. 21 games over 500. 21 games over 500. I remember, I always do like the charting over the season. We were set for 102 wins, then 95. Then I'm like, okay, you know what? We've had a rough stretch. As long as we win around 90, it looks like we'll be okay. Now, I mean, if we get to 85 wins, that would be a damn miracle. And then they have a list of fan comments after this series loss. Pretty sure this is what a lot of us are feeling. One person goes, never seen a pro team with more quit in it than this one. Softest baseball team this century. Another person writes, no heart, no toughness, no leadership from any single player. Definitely agree with that. Another one, just do us all a favor and forfeit the rest of the season. Can't bear watching this team much longer. No heart, no consistency. And I mean, like, that is so shameful and so embarrassing that the Mets play has been so bad down the stretch that they are forcing fans to not watch. How bad do you have to be or have been played to literally, you're not even out of it yet, but you're that bad and you're that disappointing that fans can't. Honestly, it's hard for me to bear watching too. Another person writes overpaid quitters, and last comment is get rid of everyone. I say right now, I mean, your only productive players, you got Nolan McLean and you got Juan Soto. Francisco Lindor, very disappointing and inconsistent. And I know, again, his hitting has gotten better in the last 2 months, but his defense, He's a Gold Glove, Platinum Glove winner. It all starts with defense, and the defense hasn't been there. So that's what I'm disappointed with him. Lack of leadership in Lindor, I'm disappointed with him. With that, Pete Alonso, when you need to count on one of your sluggers in a very all-important series, let me see what he went this series, because it had to be abysmal. God, the number I can't get. I can't get out of my head. Jesus Luzardo after the first inning, 22 players up, 22 batters down. And that's after scoring 4 runs. And the Mets were outscored 21-6 through the first 3 games. I mean, no fight. And then obviously we lost the last game 6-4. And in the midst of this 6-game losing streak, it looks like our 5-game lead went to 1.5. It's such a, how many fan bases we've made happy, from San Fran to the Reds to the Cardinals to the D-backs. We've given everybody joy. I mean, Phillies, I mean, they got a 10-game, 11-game lead in the division. Every single fan base wants to play the Mets. And, again, I mean, I don't want to be the doormats of the NL. I really don't. I really don't. And, again, Carlos Mendoza, he gives me that type of vibe. Carlos Mendoza, really. I mean, when they fired Buck a couple years ago, I said, if they're going to hire a guy with not much experience, this guy's got to get off the ground running and always get better, right? Yes, he had a good rookie year, but he had a lot around him. He really did. He had a lot of help around him. This year, he's a lot more exposed. He really is a lot more exposed. And I think we're seeing exactly what this man's ceiling is. And, what his ability is to inspire players. And it's not really there. The manager, you could say they don't have much of an impact, but, I think they have anywhere from 5 to 10 games. That's what I think. Good managers, maybe more. Maybe 10 games is too much. Around 5 to 7.5 games. I say 10 games because it seems like Carlos Mendoza just made so many blunders. But inspiring players is a big part of it. Motivating players is a big part of it. And this team went out against the Phillies that team did not look like a team inspired, not look like a team that looked like they were ready to fight. I mean, it's really frustrating. It's 2:45 in the morning. We're in here hoping that we had a better performance, had a better product. And, all right, we got Jacob deGrom. If you're a Mets fan, at least you get to look forward to that. You always, if you're a Mets fan, you always have to look forward to something silly. It's just really kind of gets me upset. We can't have anything. We can't have anything good for ourselves, hoping for that 2025 World Series. I mean, and then somebody also asked me the other day, same question, I believe, Richard Dan, I forgot, Tim, I'm sorry, Tim, you asked me about what can change. I mean, essentially, there's just too many things. You need like almost a miracle. Like, who's going to step up in your pitching rotation? Like, one guy, Nolan McLean, right? Let's just say Nolan McLean. Let's say David Peterson is a 3, right? You still got, you probably need 2 more legit starters. Holmes is not giving me any confidence. I think him right now in the bullpen is where you got to go. And then I was thinking, all right, maybe a combination of Manaya and Sanga, right, for one of those games. And then the other one of those games, you have a combination of Jonah Tong and Brandon Sproat. But then Manaya just kind of gives up 4 early runs the other day. You were thinking, okay, he does good early in the game, pitch him 3 innings, and then bring Sanga in when he comes back from the minors. That could be a game 4 starter or your game 3 starter, however you situate it. And then Brandon Sproat and Jonah Tong, they can take care of the other game. But it just seems like, where do you go now? Where do you go? Carlos Mendoza, I could see that he was visibly frustrated the other day when they asked him about Tyler McGill. And he said Tyler McGill is dealing with the same exact injury as he was dealing with months and months ago. So where's Tyler McGill going to come? What's happening with him? Well, the season is running out of time. And if he's complaining about the same exact pain, it doesn't look too likely that we're going to see him. So he seemed upset about that. And the fact that Carlos Mendoza was using the word complaining, right? He never actually talks about players like that. He never says players complain, players do so. So for him to say that, I feel that he was actually a little upset and relying on a guy like Tyler McGill. Like Tyler McGill was supposedly going to come back and save our season. I'm pretty sure if Tyler McGill struggled the first two starts, well, he needs to get his arm going, and that probably would have been normal. But relying on Tyler McGill was never going to be the answer. So, and then the other day, you heard him asking, a reporter asked Mendoza, are we still going to make the wild card? And his first answer is, yeah, we're going to do it. We have the talent. Let's do it. We got to get going. I mean, honestly, when I saw that comment, and I'm sorry I don't have it queued, but it looked like he was going to cry when they asked him if he was still going to make the wild card. And that was after the second Philly win in this series. So we ended up losing two more times after that. And now, again, it's shrunk down to a game and a half. A game and a half lead. Wow. Joseph, yeah, you summed it up pretty much, the way most of us feel. You're right. This is not even about pitching anymore. This team is lifeless. Can't score runs, boneheaded plays. I mean, I completely agree with you. It's a lot more than just the pitching at this point. It's the whole thing. It's this team will find a way to lose. If McNeil, you need to make a couple misplays in center field. All right, yeah. Again, I mentioned a couple, half hour ago, guys getting picked off with Juan Soto at the plate. I mean, that's completely unacceptable. On Monday in a 1-0 game, Brett Beatty getting picked off, not even a guy with any clout, not an all-star, not a base stealer. Why the hell is he getting picked off? That's silly. But, 2 games earlier, this is where I talk about holding players accountable. He sees Lindor get picked off twice with Juan Soto up. So, again, you're right. Those are stupid, boneheaded plays. And, again, the leadership on this team, dumb decision after dumb decision. Francisco Alvarez got multiple broken things in his hand, torn ligament, broken pinky. Put him out there. He'll fit right in. And then it comes down to it. He's got a big at bat in the 9th inning. And, if I'm a pitcher and I got 100-mile-per-hour gas and I got a guy who only has one swing path because he's got an injury, there's so many different ways you can get this man out, right? Pitch him up and in. You could pitch him 2 feet outside. He is so damn exposed, and it's not his fault. He needs upper management to say, Francisco, thank you so much for not sitting out, for trying it, giving it a go. And I said, this is what the Mets have to do. I would put him on the side for next year, go rehab. But if the New York Mets decide to give it a shot, see how he plays in his first couple of games back, see if there's any semblance of hope that he could be productive. And we've seen thus far that Francisco Alvarez is going to be a legit automatic out, right? The days of him in the middle of August going to Oppo, going to center field, and him hitting at a ridiculous pace, it doesn't look like he could do that. It doesn't look like it, and I don't blame him. He's got multiple injuries in his hands. What do you do when you swing a bat? You use your hands. So, I mean, I don't really blame him in that point. Yeah, Dan, you're right. McNeil has done well. He's been pretty solid for the most part, but it just goes to this team overall. Whatever needs to go wrong will go wrong. I mean, you got one of your more reliable defenders, but he's not a center fielder. He's not. But has he been serviceable in center field? Yes. But it's just been that type of season. And I think, the Tyrone Taylor injury, I mean, that Tyrone Taylor injury, was huge. Huge. I mean, the 2 turning points, you got Tyrone Taylor going out of the lineup and you got Francisco Alvarez coming in the lineup. Also, you got Torrens coming out of the lineup, so you essentially lose Torrens. You lose Tyrone Taylor. Tyrone Taylor again was being a very productive player with the defense and also at the plate. At the plate, being very productive as well. And Torrens again being productive behind the plate and offensively. So those two injuries, I think, were just killers a couple days ago. Everybody's saying, Dan, that Alvarez had the worst at bat of the year against Durant. I mean, I guess they could we give him a little grace? Could we just acknowledge he has multiple injuries? Because I don't think it was the worst at bat. I mean, he has multiple things wrong with him. I would expect him to look like that against the pitcher of Durant's level. That's why I wouldn't want him out there. That's why I wouldn't want him out there. But all right, folks. I'm gonna get this wrapped up. I apologize. I got to get this live stream thing kind of looked at. That's why I really haven't been doing that many live streams. But I'll get that fixed. So again, thank you everyone for stopping by. If you can kind of hit the like button, it really kind of helps out the channel. And the videos that I'm going to put out, again, I'm putting out there. If you can hit the hype button, it actually helps the channel, especially like smaller channels grow. So continue on the videos, hit the hype button and like button. So thank you all. I appreciate everyone. Richard, great stuff. Tim, Jason, explosive. Make sure I got everybody. Danny. Eyes are bad. All right, folks. Everyone have a great night. I appreciate everyone. I will speak to everybody soon.